You're listening to another episode of Mr. Riley's Neighborhood. This is a place we're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, hello, everybody. How y'all doing out there? And this nice, beautiful day. This is a very nice day. And we have Kevin Ozee from BISD, Athletic Director and Fine Arts Director. So he wears two hats. Did they ever conflict?
No, no, and it's actually a good setup.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. Now, I know you have to be tactful and diplomatic, but, that's all right. But we're going to talk about what's going on with the BISD programs. And so if you have any questions, just send them on in. They'll be on that screen on the top right-hand corner. If you want to see them, you probably have a better chance of seeing it than I do sometimes. My eyes have to squint and see what's over there, but whatever. Anyway, we're going to talk about all that's going on. And there's some really good things going on in BISD, athletics and in the fine arts. All my years of teaching there, the fine arts and the drama and the choir and show choir and all that was always top notch. And then athletics has greatly improved over the last 2-3 decades. I mean, when I started with BISD, if we won a couple of games at the high school level, it was considered to be lots of fun. And now there's a high level of expectation, which in most seasons we meet, and that's a good thing. And it's all because of Mr. Ozee. Is that what you're going to?
No, sir. I inherited a great foundation, great coaches, and just a tremendous opportunity here for fine arts and athletics.
Well, I asked a few people, because I did not like research, and they were all very complimentary of the job you're doing, you personally and a lot of the members of your staff, and which I would include the coaches. My wife in particular wanted me to give a shout out to Coach Geller, because she has just the highest regard for him. Yeah, they worked together at Centennial. He's still there. She just retired. And several of my colleagues that I worked with are now retired, or some of them moved on, because as you know, as a former coach, you got to keep the U-Haul address handy. Is that how it worked for you?
Fortunately, I've been able to spend most of my career in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, 4 different districts.
Well, yeah, but it's a lot of change.
Same house, going on 13 years in the same house.
That's a blessing, yes. Then. You don't see a lot of coaches that do that.
Right.
Before we jump into all that, I want to run the ads for the sponsors and for some of the nonprofit stuff that's going on. Particularly, we got 2 of them, and I may have a third one to talk about. But thank you to Daniel at CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. Has the workouts, the programs, the trainers. Check out his website to find out the membership plans and whatnot, what's going on in the holiday season, any special hours going on. It's a great place to do a workout. And it kind of segue on something. One of the things I noticed, it's been much, much better, was the workout facilities for our athletes. Back when I started in 1990, it was a few dead weights they could throw around. Now it's more upgraded equipment, quite a bit, scientific equipment. So that's a good thing. That may be part of why we were more successful. All right. Thank you, Daniel, CrossFit Burleson. Thank you, Shandy at Stocksdale Group at Realty. If you want to move into this area, you need to talk to her, because I know what you're reading in the papers about mortgage rates and whatnot, and that's true. The DFW market, however, is still pretty active. And so if you want to move in this area or move around it, talk to her, and she'll help you find that home here in the Burleson area. Also, thank you to Our Place and Otto. I bet you've been there before, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, everybody in town's been to Our Place. It's a great place to do business. You probably just like to meet people there, just to have a cup of coffee and some of that pie, just to, it's a good place to think, it's quiet and whatnot. And what I like about Our Place is it's an indication to me what kind of atmosphere it is, because their staff has been very stable. It's like, I've gone there a long time, and their wait staff has been there more than just an afternoon. I mean, they've been there for, in some cases, like second generation.
Right.
Our older sister worked there, younger brother works there now, and that kind of thing. So thank you, Otto, for what you do. Also, Chris over at Wild Cigar. He and Otto both, and I'll be saying this again, are both going to be depository places, so to speak, for the Toys for Tots. I'll be bringing your box by today, Chris, but it's we have Toys for Tots going on, and there's a box at Our Place. There's a box at Wild Cigar and Culture. Also, thank you to Tiffany over at Local Life Magazine. If you should have your copy by now, but you can always look on locallifetx.com and see not just the current issue, but just some updates and whatnot. And she and the next sponsor, Gail at Southern Gym, they have a depository box with Toys for Tots on the 3rd floor of the Windmiller building. It's so if you go up there, you could see both of them, I guess, at the same time. But Southern Gym, my wife works there now. That's I told her she's retired. She works a couple of days, 3 days a week, and I'm not breaking even. I'm just saying that. She comes back, But anyway, Southern Gym, fine jewelry and gemstones. Have you ever been up there by any chance, taking Mrs. Ozee up there?
I have not.
You need to take her up there.
Yes,
Or, if you want to buy her something for Christmas, you can go up there, talk to Gayla or my wife, Robin, or the other two ladies, Renee and Taryn, and they can, put together a wish list for you. And then Mrs. Ozee can go and choose from that. And they got, I don't know, if you inherit grandma's ring, they'll get it fixed for you, clean it up, all these things. They do a lot of repairs.
We've been married so long, my wife tells me what I'm buying her for Christmas.
Yes, pretty much. Same thing here. My wife will send me text photos from when she's working. Oh, this is a good idea. And I'm like, oh man, but it's really pretty high quality stuff. It's not exorbitantly expensive, but it isn't, it's no cubic zirconium in that store. Let's put it that way. She does. Gayla is an expert in jewels. She does she's not just a salesperson. She has all the credentials and she's been through all the institutes and the training, so she knows what she's talking about. Also, thank you to Hotworks. They are also a depository for Toys for Tots. Michelle Umphrey on 731 off of John Jones near Chicken Salad Chick and the theater and the Kroger and over there. Have you ever done these infrared workouts by any chance?
I have not.
Well, it's something your athletes might want to look at, particularly those that are trying to keep limber, because what infrared workouts do, they have 11 different programs from Pilates to yoga to hot blast, as they call it, to rowing, to, and various levels of strenuousness, but they all involve infrared. And so you're getting a maximized workout without all the strain and potential muscle pulls or whatever else. And a lot of people I've heard will have like a heavy duty workout somewhere, like at CrossFit, and then they'll go to Hotworks to kind of prevent the muscles from cramping up or whatever else, and it helps ease the transition, you might say. And Michelle, yeah, it really works. Taylor, you do it, right?
Yeah.
And it's worked for you. Look at this physique over here.
No, anyways. Next sponsor.
Next sponsor is my insurance agent, Texas Farm Bureau, Melissa Harmon. And yes, you guessed, she is also placing drop-off toys for Tots, 682-804-0534. She's right next to that shopping mall area on Summercrest. No, not Summercrest. No, not the street. It's on Wilshire. You know where it is. It's behind the Captain D's. And so you can drop on by a toy there and you can talk about insurance, and she'll check out your policies and see if she could save you money like she did me. And what about the nonprofits? What got going on here? Christmas season? Okay, here's a new one. Tiffany asked me to do this one for you. It's Braces of Burleson's Giving Back on December 1st at 3:30 to 6:30 p.m. You could win a free set of braces. And let me tell you, somebody had to go through that with both as a patient many years ago, and my dad still reminds me of that, and as one who paid for braces. This is a pretty good deal right here. So bring a donation to the Center for ASD, and it's over. Pardon me. It's over at Braces of Burleson. It's on 809 Southwest Allsbury, 809 Southwest Allsbury, and go on by. The December 1st is a Thursday. So go by that afternoon, and they're going to have door prizes and giveaways and whatever else. But they're also giving away a free set of braces for donations and whatever else. So go on by and help out ASD, another one of the nonprofits that has been on this show more than once, and another great outfit. Also, we have Re-Inspired. If you haven't heard of this group, sir, it helps foster kids that are aging out and help them adjust into adulthood. They have a space over in Cleburne, but they do a lot of work here in Burleson as well. And so go by Accents, the gift store by the railroad tracks, or also Bennett's office supply store, which is in the square area of Cleburne. And for a $15 donation or more, here, let's get more, you can get a Christmas ornament. And if you want to be a participant, not just a donor, just contact Sharice Olson over at Re-Inspire. And the big one that's going on, of course, Toys for Tots on Wednesday, September, good God. November 30th. Yes, Wednesday, November 30th. It's at the Chisenhall Park. Now, I understand BISD Athletics is part of this.
Both athletics and fine arts.
Right,
yes,
right. Mm-hmm. We had them on. We had Jack Matson on. I'm sure you met him by now.
Yes.
We had Jack Matson and Mike Perdue on the last show on Tuesday, and they told me that you're athletes and you're going to have performances and all this. You must have had a hand in that, Getting it set up.
Just trying to coordinate and communicate our coaches and our sponsors, kind of running the show. And of course, Colonel Matson is doing a great job.
Right.
With
The Colonel said that he was very pleased and happy with not just your participation. I mentioned your name to him, but also the entire district really is pitching in. They talked about having some choir performances and some other types of fine arts performances, and the athletes going to help with the loading and unloading of toys from cars and into the trucks and whatnot. And they're going to be wearing their uniforms. Yes. And, that's a great thing. It's a great thing for those young men and women to see too, because there's a lot of people that we don't see in this community that are in need. Burleson is not I would call a poor town or a town that's going through a great deal of stress, but there are people within it that are not going to have a good Christmas other than for Toys for Tots. So it's a really good thing for BISD to be involved in. And I thank you for your involvement in that. I mean, it's I'm sure you enjoyed that quite a bit. Let's talk a little bit about your background. I remember when you came in, the only thing I remember reading that stuck with me is that you came from South Lake. What was your position in South Lake? I
spent 5 years as the athletic director at Carroll ISD.
Carroll ISD, yes. Yeah. This is still a single high school town,
yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. Carroll ISD, is known for its football and whatnot quite a bit, but I'm sure you had to deal with other things. What do you see that's different in Burleson than in South Lake? I mean, South Lake is a more affluent community. They have all this high level expectations from their football teams, and their athletes. They are a recruiting ground for every school in the country. Did you have to deal with that?
South Lake is a very neat community. Mm-hmm. It's a great community. A lot of high expectation. Mm-hmm. A lot of leaders in their fields, the parents or CEOs and so on. What I see, yes, dealt with that in South Lake. It's a different community, different than anywhere else in the nation, probably, other than other communities like it. What I see the difference, though, as an athletic director and an educator, I wouldn't trade my time in South Lake for anything.
Right.
Great place, great friends. But I see a lot of single high school town in the competition level because the expectation level is so high that a lot of good kids don't get to participate.
Right.
And so the beauty, what attracted me to Burleson, 2 high schools, there's good participation. We have great participation. I can tell you the numbers in a little bit. And that as an educator, seeing so many kids involved who are getting a great experience through extracurricular programs is really what warms my heart. Yes, the winning's great. The state championship rings.
Do you have one? Did they give you one?
I have 21.
21 state championship rings?
Over my career.
Well, boy, you must have been coaching at the right places.
Well, I was athletic director at all those places, and then most of those came from South Lake, and we won.
But they're not all in football, right?
Not all in football.
Okay, see.
All sports. What I'm proud of in my tenure in South Lake is I got all the sport coaches together and said, look, we know football's king. We don't need to try to tear down football. We need to figure out how to get everybody else up to the level of football. And in a short time, we were able to do that. We won 3 straight Lone Star Cups, which that's the UIL's award for the best overall extracurricular program during my time there. So that's all credit to the coaches. They bought into it. They bought into rising to the level of expectation instead of trying to tear down something that's great.
Well, when I joined BISD and then the high school 2 years after that, I joined in the fall of 90. It was a one high school town, and the coach was the athletic director, just like in just almost every smaller town. The AD and the football coach were one and the same. And it really, I noticed over the tenure, is that it depends on the AD just what kind of sports program you have other than football. We had a couple of the AD/coaches that it was football and spring football, and everybody else can fend for themselves. And then we had other ADs who said, no, we're going to make sure that even golf, tennis, basketball, all are going to get a piece of the action. One of the finest men I ever worked with was the football coach and AD, Mel Maxfield.
Mel's great.
You know Mel?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I thought he was really wonderful. And his successor, Jason Tucker, was another very fine man. And they all emphasized the whole student, and I do mean academic, as well. One of my favorite stories to tell about Coach Maxfield is that I had one of his players in my class who was floundering a bit. So I went to him. He's on the football team, and I went to him and I said, this kid needs a little bit of encouragement. And they encouraged him the way coaches like to encourage, a few laps around the field to ponder their life's choices. Guy comes in and says, "What did you tell the coach?" I said, "You're horsing around and not paying attention." "Well, thanks to you, I got to run laps again today," and that kind of thing. He passed that 6 weeks. Coach comes to me, just caught me in the hallway and said, "Hey, how's this boy doing?" I said, "He's passing now, and I think he's got his mind right." "Oh, that's good." I found out later this guy was second string on the JV. This wasn't a star. This wasn't a guy who's he's barely going to make the varsity next year. This is a guy that probably every traditional attitude would be, well, I'm not going to be using him, so that's his problem. No, he was concerned about a player that probably would never see the field for him except on special teams at best. And I thought that's what you want in an AD. Yeah. And that's what my wife saw in Coach Geller. Now, I'm sure Coach Kitten is the same way. I've never met Coach Kitten. I know his background, of course. But that's the kind of coaches I saw in my last few years, about the last 15 years of my career, was that were concerned about the whole student.
Right.
And that's what you want. As far as the difference between Southlake and Burleson, is there any that's notable, or is it just different levels of expectations?
I think the level of expectation that sometimes can be a negative. Mm-hmm. And what I saw in my experience in Southlake is like the competition level, it can become unhealthy at times, mm-hmm. especially like on the academic side.
Yes,
I saw
absolutely.
the stress that kids were going through just to try to stay in the top 10% and things mm-hmm. like that. And that to me is detrimental at times on students. Mm-hmm. But the level of expectation, never had to worry about, we're going to win games, things like that. So you got to find that balance. What I see in Burleson mm-hmm. is a community of very hardworking people, mm-hmm. people who want to succeed, whether that be wins or that be graduating and top mm-hmm. of your class, whatever that might be. Very hardworking. And how do we raise that expectation level that's healthy? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's what I kind of see the difference between Southlake and Burleson is there is a history here of success, but how do we take it to the next level? And that's mm-hmm. what we're trying to get to. How do we copy like what Coach Geller is doing at Centennial? Mm-hmm. I mean, he's, I think, been in the playoffs almost every year that school's been open.
Pretty close. I think maybe the first year. Yeah, they might have missed, but I know that he has a consistently winning team, and so is their baseball team. Yes. When I joined BISD or BHS, the winning teams were tennis and the girls' sports, volleyball and basketball. Football, oh boy, it was a mess. In the 80s, it was terrible. And when it started off the 90s, it didn't get much better. We did improve greatly through the 90s, and we've had some down years at BHS, but we also had some pretty good years. And here's the one thing, though, kind of on a side note as well. You of course, being from Southlake, are seeing the impact of NIL up front and close, right, with the Ewers kid.
Yes.
Is that ever going to be a problem here? Because I think that the NIL situation for high school kids, I can't imagine. It's like it's a terrible thing to happen. I don't care for it in college, but they're grown, well, not grown men, but they're adults, I think. But high school kids getting NIL, that's crazy.
I think it's I everything that happens at the collegiate level mm-hmm. Filters down to high school.
Well, didn't we have a quarterback at Burleson that moved for athletic opportunities elsewhere? And I thought, why would he do that? Because we're going to get him where he wants to go.
We did, yes. Last year Dylan Raiola left, mm-hmm. Was here for a season and left, and mm-hmm. The NIL. I agree. I don't think it's a good thing. Mm-mm. I think there's got to be a balance. I also have seen the other side. I coached in college and saw the other mm-hmm. side of.
Which college was that?
Texas A&M.
Oh, I'm sorry. And well, I'm a Baylor graduate, so as you can tell by the colors.
I picked up on the green and gold. But I saw the other side where mm-hmm. you got student athletes who they can't survive. Yes, mm-hmm. they have a scholarship, mm-hmm. but they have no spending money. They mm-hmm. have nothing else, and they're living a pretty meager existence. And yet they're playing for universities who are bringing in millions and millions of dollars, paying their coaches millions and millions of dollars. So I think there's a balance there. I don't know that the NIL is the right thing. It's almost like it's gotten out of control because you have these businesses
Right.
Who can pour money, and it's going to create more of the haves and have-nots in the college scene. And it also creates an expectation, I think, at the high school level. Kids and families are going to start expecting it at the high school level. Right now in Texas, it's not legal for a high school athlete to enter into an NIL agreement. What goes on behind the scenes is probably happening.
Well, I agree that the athletes should have some sort of stipend, and I think it should come from the university. And it'd be great if it could be, everybody gets the same stipend but here the problem I'm seeing is like here you got Bryce Young in Alabama. He's making $1 million a year. Okay, what about that slob offensive lineman that's busting his butt to make sure that Bryce Young stays upright? He's probably getting room and board, maybe a few bucks on the side or whatever else. But you also get situations like you had with Texas Tech. They basically got their donors together and said every varsity football player is going to get $25,000 a year. And I'm thinking, okay, that's great. What about the girls' soccer team?
Well, that's the issue with the colleges providing the money is because of the equity. Is because most colleges can't afford to give
they couldn't
all their athletes a stipend. You're talking about the top few of Division I colleges can't afford, but most of them cannot.
Yeah. Well, and you can't control the boosters. I'm sure you found that at A&M because Aggies are known to be a bit over the top. Here is Bill Janish. He's a big fan. Had 10 straight years of making the playoffs. I'll let y'all read for yourself because because I can't read from here and my phone is dead. I'll see if I can pick it up if I have any left here, but any juice left. But
Bill's absolutely correct, and the size of his team and what's beautiful about Coach Geller's offense is most of society would say it's a.
Oops! I'm sorry. I got my phone. I got to turn it on. Sound. Come on, sound. Get down.
Most of society would say that's an outdated offense. It's antiquated, so on and so forth. But that's how he wins.
Yeah,
and it's a beautiful thing to see. I love it. It's going to be fun tomorrow. We play in Wichita Falls.
Which team?
Centennial. Plays,
No. Which high school team?
That plays football. Plays Amarillo Tascosa.
That's
second round of playoffs. Yeah.
Yeah, second round. I knew they had made the second round, but I didn't know who their opponent was. Anyway, my phone's almost dead, so I'm going to not mess with it right now. But the only time I remember my BHS experience, we did one year go to the semifinals. About 20 years ago. And then that coach he and his whole staff went to Plano East.
Coach Crawford, he's a good friend.
Yes. And that's when Maxville come in, and that, like I said, how much I admired him. I didn't know Coach Crawford hardly at all. I mean, he was, down in the gym area most of the time, but I did get to know Mel. That's a good thing that we also, we've had some winning sports other than football, but football does drive everything in Texas, and not just at the high school level. And that's just the way it's going to be. But you know what? I'm also interested, you put on your other hat now for fine arts. When I got here, I said, boy, these people take their drama and their arts pretty seriously, more than I thought they would. And like the show choir and the musical in the spring was a big deal. And, the band was competitive statewide in terms of going for the contests. And everybody thinks that football parents or sports parents may be, a bit rabid. Nothing like I saw with the band parents. They were nuts. Our band parents, by golly, they were going to get their piece in at the school board meeting. I saw that happen a couple of times. Same thing with the choir kids. And that just cracked me up about how these band parents were not there to make friends. They were there to get money for the band and new uniforms and new instruments. And so they knew how to do it. But, you're in charge of that part of the fine arts. What exactly does that entail, being in charge? I mean, we can imagine what sports ADs are like, but what is this fine arts position like?
Well, my job is really just kind of guide we have a great staff, fine arts folks who know a lot more about fine arts than I do. My job in a leadership position is similar with both athletics and fine arts. We're dealing with staff, we're dealing with transportation, we're dealing with budgets, logistics, and student experience. And so what we're trying to do is make that consistent across both fine arts and athletics. Also, I believe that one of my big tasks is to really get the word out and market, if you will, the great things that our fine arts programs are doing, and athletics as well. There's a lot of great things going on between the two that are kind of under the radar. And I don't know, and I appreciate you having me on the show. I think, we've talked a lot about, we don't have a local newspaper.
Well, I like to think this is as close as it gets.
So appreciate that.
No problem. I'm really glad that BISD and I could make this possible.
Yeah, and highlighting the great thing. We have a lot of great things going on in Burleson ISD with fine arts and athletics and just getting the word out. We have tremendous participation. I've brought the numbers at.
Okay, let's hear them.
So last year we had a little over 7,000 students in grades 6 through 12. Okay. Athletics, UIL athletics starts in 7th grade. We had 2,488 students participate in UIL athletics. That's 35%. That first number. And then we had 2,646 students participate in fine arts, grades 6 through 12. That's 37%.
Yes.
So you have 72% of your students, grades 6 through 12, are in an extracurricular program.
Yes.
And what I like to preach, going back, talking about the NIL and the college, to me, there's two types of programs. You have your entertainment-based programs, and that's what the colleges have become.
All right.
And you have your education-based programs, and that's what we are. And I hope the NIL doesn't corrupt high school programs and things. But our mission, our goal, and my job as a leader of the fine arts and athletics program is to provide that direction, that we are education-based. We want to provide a great experience for every kid who participates in whatever they choose to participate in. And that it's the best part of their day is to be in the, practice or, the band practice or the football practice.
Well, I greatly appreciated having those type of students in class because the type of student academically that struggled the most are the ones who had very little involvement or buy-in to the school, whereas I rarely had trouble with athletes or band members or choir members, particularly the classes I taught at the AP and dual. I had athletes, but I had a whole lot of like choir and drama and musically related activities. I don't know, maybe just the type of material I was teaching, the history and whatnot, it was more appealing. But I had a lot of athletes of all the sports. I had a lot of golfers, a lot of tennis. Football players, I had, a decent number, but it's such a big program. But, I've had maybe 8 to 10 a year, whereas I have almost the entire girls volleyball team, which is only, about 10 players, and I'd have about 7 of them. And I hardly ever had any academic problems with them because, first of all, they're good students, but they were also disciplined because they were used to having to allocate their time wisely, and they had goals. Some wanted to play college level at whatever level, but most of them had other goals as well. So I greatly appreciated what extracurriculars did. And some people think, well, that should be like club level stuff. That's another thing I want to ask you about is off-campus clubs. But I thought it was great. And as far as the football team, people say that dominated the system, but it may happen in other school systems, but not in Burleson, particularly under the better ADs that said, no, we're going to have a good basketball team. Because if you have a better basketball team, we're going to have a better track team. If you have a better track team, we're going to have a better football team. Not because of the athletic part, but the competition part.
Right.
You don't want to be that program that's lagging behind your buddies. And that really made a difference. So, and I think also the type of student body we have now is more diverse. Back when I started, it was a small country town, almost all white kids. And so as we got bigger and we got more and more young people to choose from, and more diverse, we got better athletically and in the fine arts. You have to attend all the fine arts things because there are a bunch of them.
I don't attend all of them. I have I've been doing this so long. I kind of have a 2-night rule, 2 nights a week rule on myself and for myself.
Right.
Otherwise, it could be every night and Saturdays.
Right. Well, that's why as a teacher, I'd say, well, I can't make every game, but I'll make at least a couple a season.
Yeah.
And it really was touching to me, particularly on the girls' side, the volleyball and basketball. I'm just sitting out there warming a seat with my backside, and they were so appreciative.
Yes.
That I just showed up and what did I do? I just sat there and watched, and that's it. Cheered a little bit, and they just really were appreciative of that.
Yes, and I'll put a plug in that our athletic events are going to be probably the least expensive entertainment you can find in this area. Good entertainment, and then also most of our fine arts performances are free for the community to attend. We offer what's called a gold card for seniors who live in the community. That gives them a free card for every event. And this year we started offering a red, white, and blue pass for active military, police, fire, and EMT. That gives them free admission with their family.
I have a question from one of my vast listening audience, Mandy Grimes. Hi, Coach. My great uncle played football with you in the 1960s.
That would be my father.
Okay.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah. My dad played. My dad graduated from Castleberry High School and then went to the University.
So you know Mandy Grimes?
I think so.
And my great uncle played football with you in the 1960s. How has the game changed since you played back then? Hopefully, it's gotten safer. Has it gotten safer? I mean, you hear a lot about CTE and even at the younger ages and stuff like that.
The game, football, has gotten safer. I was not around in the 1960s, but I know my dad was a high school and college All-American, played briefly for the Redskins.
Oh, really?
And
I mean the Commanders.
The Commanders.
No, which is a dumb name. It's the Redskins, deadgummit. And it's the Cleveland Indians, by the way. Yeah, come on.
But he's dealing with a lot of physical elements from his time back then. The game has gotten safer. The concussion issue is it is an issue, but the rules have changed to make it safer. Interestingly enough, do you know the second leading sport for concussions?
Soccer, probably.
Soccer.
Yeah, from those headers.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah.
So all the focus on football and things like that, but concussions are a serious thing that we deal with and try to avoid.
Well, I have a friend that deals with brain trauma, and he said that's how I knew the soccer answer, because he said particularly when you play on a wet field and that ball's heavier, and it's like running into a brick wall sometimes trying to head that ball some direction. And I watch a lot of football. I'm big into college football. NFL, I'll watch the Cowboys, but I don't sit down and watch like the Jaguars and the Titans or something like that. Right. But I do watch a lot of college ball, and it drives me crazy about, we're going to check for targeting or whatever else, but I guess you have to do that.
Yeah.
Because there was that time where it was just, you were taught, a little bit more use your head helmet kind of thing. And now they're trying to get away and use your shoulder more and don't go for the knees. And it may have made it a bit safer. Of course, the equipment, you look at those pictures of 1960s ball players, that helmet, basically, I don't see how it protected anybody.
Right.
And now you got this, very space age developed helmet, and that helps. But I think it's safer. I'm 60 and I watched football for years, and it's not so much that they've softened the game as they're more attentive to the things that cause CTE.
Right.
So, and as far as high school, of course, that's paramount, is the safety of the students, and physically and otherwise. So.
Right.
And so, training staffs are a lot bigger now than they used to be.
Yes.
At the high school level. We had, back in the day, we had one guy, Roddy Smith is his name.
Roddy's still with us.
Is he still with you? Yeah, right. Okay, good. I thought he might have retired because he's close to my age. But he was running around like, his pants were on fire because he had to deal with all these teams at the same time at all the campuses.
Right.
And now hopefully he has some help.
We have 2 full-time trainers at each high school and 1 full-time trainer at each middle school.
See, they didn't have that back in the 90s.
Right. So. And plus we have a team doctors, and yes, it's a...
Right. But the thing is, it may sound odd to somebody that you have both fine arts and athletics because it's seemingly like 2 different activities and 2 different focuses, but really not.
It's not.
They really are complementary because it's all about performance and all this.
Right.
And like I've been telling you, that in the 90s in particular, when I got kind of used to the Burleson scene, I mean, the town turned out for the musical. It turned out for the band concert or the jazz band concert and all that. I mean, they had a lot of participation.
Right.
And I always thought that was a great thing. Great thing for the kids because it makes them feel like somebody's paying attention.
Right.
And that's a pretty good thing. But, there are, I'm sure, times when you have to deal with conflicts and whatever else, and an upset parent perhaps that their son isn't playing enough or daughter isn't playing enough, that kind of thing. How do you handle that?
Occasionally we have that. The best way is if we can get the parent and the student with the coach or the director in the same room and just have a conversation. And I think, especially in competitive events, you want to win. And parents, sometimes they want what they think's best for their child when we try to get them to think what's best for the whole team.
Right.
And so, the best way I've found is, hey, let's talk through this in football as an example. Let's talk through each position. And, so we get down and the parents like, so our coach has got every position right except your son's position. Is that what you're telling me? And try to get them to see a bigger picture, that being a part of a team and learning what they're going through on the team, what they're being taught by the coaches, sometimes may not equate to playing time. And the coach is going to put the best people, in their opinion, out on the field or the court to try to win, put their team in best position to win, and get the parents to see that. In Burleson, I've been here, this is my third year in Burleson, and I've had very little parent issues like that. In my previous district, it's quite a bit.
Well, yeah, because they all think their son is the next Johnny Unitas or something. I just dated myself, didn't I? But they all think their son is going to be the next Quinn Ewers, I guess. Or they're going to, that Texas is just waiting to pick up my son at whatever sport, or A&M is, offering him a scholarship, if only the coach would understand. Right. And I saw a little of that, but not nearly as much. Most of the parents I dealt with, or not, I didn't deal with it, but I were aware of, they had sons and daughters playing. Most of them, by large majority, they were looking for their kids to be involved in athletics more than they were looking for a free ride to college, because they understood that, even at Southlake, not every player went to go play for, Big 12 or Southeast Conference. Here, a lot of our athletes went to play for Tarleton or Stephen F. Austin, Texas State, Houston Baptist, that kind of level. And they were, the parents were more or less happy with that, because they, at least their son or daughter could continue to play.
It's something I preach to parents is if your son or daughter wants to go participate at college level, no matter what level, Division III, Division II, Division I, whatever it is, they better love that sport. I mean, love it, because it's a job in high school. It's a full-time job in college. And you see a lot of kids go off to college and their expectation levels here at one level, and they don't like it, so they come home or they transfer. And that's what we're seeing a lot with the transfer, because the expectation level is not meeting what and it is a full-time job. I was at that level, and it's a 70-hour a week.
Who did you play for?
I did not play.
All right.
I was a student assistant at A&M, then I was a graduate assistant. But it was during football season, it's 70-plus hours a week on top of your classes.
Well, yeah, and I would tell the athletes in my class, look, the better you do in my class, the easier it's going to be in those classes in college. You're kind of loafing through history class now. You're going to be taking it in college, and you're going to say, man, I should have stayed awake. Yeah. And and I have had kids come back and say, your class helped me because I understood the material they were telling me in college a lot easier. And so, I could honestly say my experience with the athletic part and the fine arts part were some of the best parts. And as far as dealing with parents on my end academically, it was not very common at all that they would bring in the athletics. Hey, he's not doing one in your class. What are you going to do about it? He plays ball. That didn't happen very often. And I never, ever had a coach come to me and try to persuade me to bump some kid up to get him or her eligible.
Right.
And I told you before, the only time I had a coach get upset with me about grades is the kid was going to fail the class. He had a 69. His mother comes up to me. This is when I was teaching ninth grade. His mother comes up to me and says, my son struggles in school, but football keeps him in school. Is there any way you can get that 69 to a 70? Because the grades are due the next Monday. This is a Friday afternoon. And I said, sure, here, have him do these things. give them a couple of handouts, but I'll need them by 8 o'clock because that's when the grades are due. I can't help that. And so she met me at the door at 7:30 and handed it to me. I put him in. He gets a 70, 71. Coach comes steaming down there. We were going to cut this kid. Now, and so, hey, Coach, that's up to you, but I'm not going to be the tough guy in this. I'm not going to be the bad guy and whatnot. But that's the only time that ever happened. The coaches, every time I would go to them and say, so-and-so is, like I mentioned with the Mel story, every time, whatever the sport, they'd say, we'll talk to them. We'll get after it.
Yes.
And it always worked. And they always had they still do the sign-in sheets every week, or every week I would get a little slip of paper and I'd check a box saying he's academically eligible or she's doing well.
Well, now it's all on the computer system on Skyward, so now it's easy to.
Well, but is that still a weekly thing?
Our coaches can check weekly. They can check it at 3-week period. They can check it however they want to check it. Each campus, we have like a coach that kind of coordinates all that.
Right. But that little slip of paper, I understood that it's a little while ago, but this is not that long, about 10 years ago. I was told if a kid did not turn in that slip, it better get them track shoes ready because
reminders.
Reminders. Yeah. On that fourth lap, maybe you'll start getting your life together again.
And all this, I just this morning I was on Twitter. And I was looking at Elon Musk. I don't know if you saw that. He put a memo out to the company. It said, if you're not in to work hard and really make this company great, I'll give you 3 months severance, right? It's kind of what the memo was. And my response was like, I bet. And he said, click the box yes, like you're committing. And my response was, I bet the athletes and the marching band students click yes, because they're used to the hard work, long hours to make something great.
Right.
And that's what he's trying to do.
I saw the headline, but I didn't read the article. Yeah. I got distracted this morning we were trying to clean the house up because some contractor's coming by. And my wife says, we're not going to let this house look like this, the contractor coming by. But, that's true. And I see some of my former students, and they were involved in some fashion with the arts or the athletics, or ROTC is another one.
Yes.
Are you in charge of that by any chance?
No.
Okay, right. Anyway, they're making successes of themselves in professional life, and they go to college, or they go to the military, or they go, they get some training in HVAC or plumbing, and they make more money than this guy does.
Yes.
And those things aren't easily done without discipline. And that's why I've always been a big supporter of athletics. I'm an athletic supporter, so to speak. I didn't mean it that way, but that's what it sounded like. But and I also same with the fine arts. Yes. And I know of a couple of them that have done well. I brag about this, but Kelly Clarkson was one of my students.
Oh, cool.
For 2 years, in fact.
Very cool.
And she was what you see on her show is what I saw in the classroom.
Has she been on your show?
Well, I would like to have her on my show, but and I kid myself and I tell people, I know she's a big time singer and she got her own show and all this, but until she comes to my show, has she really made it?
No, she hadn't made it yet. No, I agree with
I've had some people say, you ought to get Kelly on the show, but I don't know. I bet she gets 1,000 requests a day for something like this, And but the last time I saw her was, late 2000s. She come by to visit, and she had a couple of friends with her, and they just walked in my class right before class was about to start, and all the kids were like, "That's Kelly Clarkson."
That's fun.
Yeah. But no, I when she was going through the rise in her fame, I'd get people calling me from publications or E-News or E-Weekly or whatever, and they want to know what she was like. And I think they wanted me to say, oh, she was a party girl and she's crazy. Right. She was none of those things. She went to church. She played softball with the church team. She was a nice girl. She was very outgoing then, and she's outgoing now. What you see is what she is and what she was. And they were all, oh, really? Oh, okay, thanks. They wanted a lot of dirt, and there wasn't any dirt to give. And that's, I think, a lot. And how much did the fine arts have to do with that? I think had some, because, all the choir directors I worked with 3 primarily through my career. They weren't going to tolerate off the field shenanigans.
Right.
They weren't there. They expected their singers and dancers and their show choir and their musical. You're going to walk the line and you're going to take care of business. They were almost as tough as coaches. You know,
Absolutely.
you know.
I tell people all the time, our choir director at Centennial, Eric Cooley, is one of the best I've ever seen. And if I could talk him into coaching a sport, because he's phenomenal. And they have I got to put a plug in for him. They have a neat deal coming up in December called Feast of Carols that they do every year at Centennial.
Really? Okay.
And I forget how much the tickets are, but it's a fundraiser for them. And they have a catered meal with the Christmas show. It's going to be a neat.
Do you also oversee the dance teams, the Strutters and the Sparklers?
Yes.
One of my favorite groups was the Strutters,
Yes.
and I was good friends with their former coach, a young lady named Megan Owen. And they still do Mr. Burleson, right?
Yes.
I was the MC for many years for that, and I just loved it. And the girls were so appreciative, and the parents were appreciative, and I really felt, just well respected by what they did, by what they showed me. And it was one of my favorite groups because they often were sidelines of the football, right?
Yes.
The game is the thing. And they were a relatively smaller group, about 25 or 30 girls. And so often they didn't really get the publicity that a lot of other groups did, but I thought they were wonderful.
Yes. And Miss Owen's successor, Jamie Moore, is a former BHS strutter herself.
Is that her married name or her maiden name? Because
I don't know her maiden name.
Okay, I knew it was a lot of them, but I don't remember the maiden names or married names.
Yeah, so she's the sense of pride of coming back home, coming to community, and does a great job with the Strutters. And you see, just like band, you see them at the football games, but they also have competitions.
Right.
Like, was it 2 Saturdays ago, we had a Friday night football game late. They get home late, and the next morning they're at band competition.
Right.
Same thing with the Strutters and the Centennial.
I always wondered why statewide band competitions were in October. I mean, there's a bunch.
Yes.
My band kids that I had, they would miss 2 or 3 days out of the month, but they were, of course, they're practicing and all the Saturdays and then if they made it to a certain level, then they're going down to Austin or something like that, and they were just exhausted.
Yes.
And by the end of October, and as a teacher, you accommodate that. Unless if a teacher didn't accommodate that, they're not going to last very long as a teacher.
Right. Right.
And because they're not in it for the right thing. Because sometimes you're going to have to extend a little grace time when you got a kid or a group of kids. Ag was the same way. Are you in charge of Ag?
I am not, but that's another great program.
Yeah, it's a great program.
And
boy,
they were hard workers.
Yes, they are.
Yes.
And you're just going to have to understand that as a teacher, their focus is this is their focus. Now, if they're still doing well in school, that's great. But October, band's going to be their priority, and you need to understand that.
Right.
Or like in playoff time, I'm sure your ball players right now at Centennial, they're maybe trying to focus on the pre-cal, but they're in the back of their mind, they're thinking about Amarillo, Tascosa. And you get it as a teacher, you just got to understand. You're teaching the whole student, not just your subject to that kid, and nothing else matters. The joke about teachers that the subject is the only one that matters. Well, I used to joke about that too, but I understood after a while, certainly, as I matured as a teacher, you need to support the whole thing.
Right.
And if you do that, you'll get a lot better response in the classroom because they know that the teacher's on their side as a person, not just as a grade in the grade book.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And see, and I credit men like you for making this happen. Men and women like you make this happen. Because, when the Burleson football team wasn't very good, the discipline wasn't very good either.
Right.
And as it got better over the years, the pride of performance, I think, translated into better performance in the classroom.
Absolutely.
And I think so. I credit y'all for a lot of that.
We also, and you've probably heard this before. We talk about football because that's the first sport of the year, really. I mean, you have volleyball, cross country, tennis, but the football is the most visible.
Right.
And the success of your football season usually determines how the rest of the school year goes.
I believe so.
So when you have a good football season and everybody's excited, the rest of your school year usually goes that's been my experience.
It does. And, and some people, if they want to be, Grinches about it, think that schools spend too much time, money, and attention on extracurriculars, particularly athletics. I just don't, the people that do that aren't on the inside of the education system. They don't see the benefits. And, yeah, there's money being spent, but, the product is what we're out after, not just making a budget, which I'm sure you have to deal with budgetary stuff all the time.
Yeah, and I would say to those people, like I said, the numbers earlier, we have over 70% of our secondary students participating. In our budget, I don't have the exact numbers. Right around a little under 3% of the total budget is spent on fine arts and athletics.
Good grief.
So it's kind of doing more with less.
Right.
You asked me the difference earlier about communities like Southlake. The difference in Southlake is money's no object there.
Yeah.
There was every student had a personal trainer, they had a nutritionist, they had all this. Yeah, it's over the top. It's a great place, don't get me wrong.
Well, I know, but they have the wherewithal to do that, whereas we're still a middle class town.
And that's what I take great pride in here, is that programs like you mentioned, Coach Geller's, doing wonderful things and competing at the highest levels through hard work.
Does Title IX factor into a lot of your decision making?
All the time, yes. Sir.
We're running close on time, but I did want to ask about that, because I know Title IX. My experience from the outside is I know that they wanted like a wrestling team, and but they had to have a corresponding girls team or a co-ed wrestling team, which I don't think is a great idea. I wouldn't want a girl that can compete with guys on a wrestling team. She must be pretty stout. But I'm just saying it seemed to be an inhibiting factor. But on the other hand, the parents of girls athletes will say, hey, we want the same attention that everybody else gets, like football players. So is it an impediment or an aid or just something you have to deal with?
I don't see it as an impediment. I see it as something. I'm a fan of Title IX. I grew up in a time where women's sports were not as...
There's something to do in the off season and wasting time, blah, 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 yeah.
And I see over the years what's happened with Title IX and the opportunities for girls expand and embraced even.
Right.
And I think it's great. And there's more opportunities, there's more experience in the school setting for women or girls to participate, and I just think it's a great thing. It's not if you do it right, if you handle it right, that it's an equity issue. It's not an equal issue. You can never. There's not a girls' sport that equals football numbers. Right. So it's an equity issue, and there's formulas that I have to use in budgeting and things like that. But if you do it the right way, everybody's going to get a great experience, boys and girls. Right. And you're not tearing down one to try to build up another, and that's why you see some people who see it as an impediment. They're not doing it right.
Well, like I mentioned when I first started BHS, the most successful teams were the volleyball team. The softball team was really good throughout the 90s and still is, and the tennis team, both boys and girls, were really good. And so, the high profile sports, basketball and football, really struggled. Baseball got better pretty quick. One of my buddies became their coach, and they won their first district championship in 1993. It was the first district championship in a boys sport other than tennis since like the Eisenhower administration. I think it was amazing. And so it really is. It's something. Off topic, do you drink coffee, sir?
I do.
I got something for you then.
Perfect.
I got
great.
Mr. Allard hug.
And Baylor green and gold.
See, you figured that. Here's one for Dr. Jimerson.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sure y'all talk quite a bit. Is your office in the Central Ad building?
No, sir. I'm at Burleson High School in the tennis. There's a building there by the tennis courts. I'm in that building.
Okay, but I'm sure you see him quite often.
Yes.
So if you don't mind dropping
Absolutely.
him on, he's
happy to.
He's quite the character.
He's fantastic. I love, and I just got to put a plug in the vision that he has for this district, and we talk about the student experience, and that's one of the reasons I have fine arts is let's make it great for fine arts and athletics.
Well, when he came in, I think it's 2013, I was immediately impressed with his energy level.
Yeah.
And the fact he seemed to be throwing out ideas like sparks off an engine. But
now he is he is an every night guy. He's at an event almost every night, and he has energy to do it.
Right. Well, is he still throwing the iron around like he did?
Does?
Yeah, okay. We thought of him as pretty swole, as they say, but the most swole superintendent in Texas. But one thing, as an academic, he totally revamped the dual enrollment programs. That's why I had Seth Hickman on last time, and he told us all about that. And that was that would have been great 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And he made it happen because dual enrollment was on its way out. And you mentioned Mr. Crummell in our pre-show. Mr. Crummell helped keep that alive.
Yes.
And then Jimerson was able to take it to the next step. And it must be interesting, you know Richard Crummell.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
personally.
Yes.
Former band director, big time into the arts. I'm sure he left you something to work with.
Like I said, I inherited a wonderful foundation and a wonderful fine arts program. And I think my challenge, our opportunity for me, a goal is to try to spread the word as much as possible of the great things that they do.
Well, hopefully this will help.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope so, and I don't know who's on next month. Michaela Hill takes care of that. She's kind of like recruiting and drafting people. You will go on the show now. And, I'd like to get Jimerson on, but, we have to try to catch him is like catching smoke sometimes. But I'm going to have other people on a monthly basis, and I appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I hope the team does well Saturday. Or is it Friday night or Saturday?
Tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
Friday,
Okay.
yes.
So you're playing in Wichita Falls.
In Wichita Falls, yes.
Yeah. I remember many of those playoff games, they get on the bus, we'd all get out of class and wave them goodbye and all. The thing about the pep rallies, is that people say, gosh, football must really dominate your academics. No, football was the least intrusive in terms of students missing school time.
Right.
The only exception was pep rallies. And it wasn't the ball players, because usually the coach said, get back to class. It was the band kids that had to leave early, and then they, we had to put up the instruments. And so it not only blew up your second period, but your third period. And I got to the point where I saw enough pep rallies, and I bet you had too.
Well, I just say this, and I'm a former social studies teacher as well, but can you imagine 180 days without stuff like that?
I'm just being
teaching your class, and the kids go to class. And
I knew. I was just being curmudgeon back in the day, but I understood also the pep rallies. I'd gone to so many of them, and the ball players would be set aside. But here's the dance team's opportunity, here's the cheerleaders' opportunity, here's the band's opportunity to pep squad, whatever. They all got a piece of the action.
Yes.
And so I understood, and I didn't really make a big deal about it. It just when the band students come in 30 minutes late to your next period, the band director had to say something to us. Bull Corn, you just loafed. You and I know. No, I really just got to a point. I made peace with pep rallies very, very early on in my career. They said, this is going to be the way it is, and you might as well get your mind right. So I didn't have a problem with it. But I sure appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I really, really, as a Burleson resident and former teacher, I really like what's been going on in all the programs and the direction the school's taken. And there's always things to work on and whatnot, but I just think that Burleson ISD is heading in the right direction, and it deals with those bumps in the road as they should. And and let's hope for the best for tomorrow night.
Yes, sir.
All right, Taylor. I'll be probably Zooming on Monday, so we'll talk about that in a bit. Okay. All right. And we'll see y'all next week.